Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our last day of the conference, Rise Up in Justice, Renew in Peace. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Reverend Michael Tino, who is going to lead us in services this morning. He is affiliated with the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and his topic will be liberation and salvation. Thank you, Reverend Tino.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be back at Murray Grove. Welcome to my folks from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Westchester in Mount Kisco, New York, who are also joining us. This is it's like my own homecoming, coming back to Murray Grove. Welcome to worship this morning.
All of us are loved. Each of us is welcome. No one is a stranger. No one is an outcast. No one is alone. Everything we do, when our hearts are grateful and our lives are faithful, makes a better world, one that we can call everybody's home. Juntos por amor, cada quien precioso. Nadie es un extraño, nadie es invocado, nadie sin calor. Cada paso fiel, con virtud y gozo, vamos construyendo un mundo mejor, lleno de color, como una flor. All of us are loved. Each of us is welcome. No one is a stranger. No one is an outcast. No one is alone. Everything we do, when our hearts are grateful, and our lives are faithful, makes a better world, one that we can call everybody's home.
Our opening words this morning come to us from my friend and colleague Ali Bell. They are based on Psalm 121. Ali writes, "We lift up our eyes to the hills. From where will our help come? God of our understanding, hear our prayers. Where do we find help in these sorrowful times? We are seeking something to hold us, someone to hold us, for we feel so weary, tired of the way that this virus is infecting our loved ones, sickening some and stealing others, tired of the murderous rage of racism that is being used as a tool of execution against Black and brown bodies. We are so weary, tired of worrying how we will survive day after day in this pandemic, tired of worrying if we are preparing our children for the world that they have inherited. We are so weary, tired of feeling isolated in our homes, tired of not being able to greet each other with hugs and handshakes. We are so weary. From where will our help come? we lift our weary eyes. Spirit of life, we beseech you, help us to dig deeper into our faith. Not the faith of fairy tales and limited understanding, not the faith that these things will change somehow without our doing the work of change. Help us to dig deeper into our faith in humanity. We know that we have all we need to fundamentally change these things. Racism, if we do the work of dismantling the system of white supremacy in our world, in our community, in our churches, congregations, and fellowships, in our homes, and in ourselves. The spread of this pandemic, if we continue to hold the line against a government that places profit above lives. Survival, if we remind ourselves that if we have, we need to give. If we need, we can trust our community and ask for help. We know we are all a part of the interdependent web, each of us needing and each of us giving. That interdependence keeps us connected and makes us stronger. The education of our children, if we remember that just like each of us, children strive to do justice, to love fully, to seek truth. Remind us that to truly protect them, we must be forthright in our telling of these events. Our isolation in community, if we remember that we have each other, we can depend on the web to hold us. Remind us that our bodies have stored the sensation of touches that have brought us joy and comfort. Remind us to wrap ourselves in this touch when we are missing each other, for we are right here, right here, right here. We are the keepers of each other. We are our shade. We are our healing light. We are the keepers of each other. We are our aid and we are our salvation. We are the keepers of each other. We are the weavers and we are the web. May we remember, may we act. May it be so. Ashe. Amen. We light our chalice this morning, symbol of our faith, as a beacon to remind us that we are the keepers of each other. From wherever you are, please join us in singing Just as Long as I Have Breath. The community I serve gathers on Sunday morning virtually or in person. We bear witness to the lives we bring into this sacred space together. Here in this scattered community of people who love one another. Have we started the hymn? No, we're good. Here in this scattered community, we bear witness to the lives that we bring into this room as well. We bear witness to the joys that you come in here with, the sorrows that you arrive here with, to the grief that is weighing heavy upon your heart. We bear witness to the pain in our world, such as it is. We bear witness to our responsibility to address the pain in that world. I invite you now to join me in a brief moment, centering and silence. We take all of these things into our hearts and minds and prayers. Spirit of life and love, God of many names, beyond all understanding, we gather here in gratitude for the ability to rise up in justice, for the ability to learn from one another, to know one another, to see one another, to perceive one another, to be with one another, even if we are not in the same room with one another. We are grateful for the love that we understand pervades our world. And even in that gratitude, we know that there are things masking that love, that there are things hiding that love, there are things preventing that love from acting most fully in our world. There's evil, there's hate, there's disagreement, there is injustice in our world, and it is masking the love that we know is there. Spirit of life, give us the strength, unmask the powerful love in our presence. Let it shine through the world. Please join me in a moment of silence. Amen. Once again, I invite you to sing.
ילדים יחושה, ישחקו תוך הסט בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreams, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and their vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope and not in sorrow, and the promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
I have two readings to share this morning. The first is from Universalist 20th century minister and prophet Clarence Skinner from his essay, The Social Implications of Universalism. I've adapted it to edit out gender-limited terms for humanity and to simplify his language just a little. The social implications of a free religion are apparent. Freedom in religion contributes to freedom in social life. Those who are inspired and encouraged to question the accepted traditions and creeds perpetuated by religions are the people who naturally and inevitably search for the true bases of social good. If they are taught to be dissatisfied with the status quo in theology, their logic will inexorably drive them to the same satisfaction with the status quo of politics or of industry. Light the fuse, and the fire will reach the bomb. Emancipate a person's spirit, and they will carry their freedom into all they say and do. From defying authority in religion, they will progress to defying authority in politics. From fighting tyrannies of theology, they will lead on to the fight against the tyrannies of commercial oligarchies, the tyrannies of our society. Our second reading is from my colleague, Roger Butts. It is entitled, What Now? Roger writes, pray for the one who is angry at God. His wife is upstairs in critical care, basically alone, being loved by nurses and docs and chaplains the best we can. He will die, and he knows it. If praying is your thing, go ahead and pray. There's another one today whose loved one is dying. He too is mad. He's mad at the doctors for not trying the latest recommendations from the president, which is no kind of cure, no kind of treatment. Sometimes grief looks like lashing out at anything and anyone. Keep him in your heart, if that is your thing. Hold him in the light. Thank a nurse if you'd like to do something a bit more concrete. People ask me, where have you seen the holy in this COVID madness? Once, approaching midnight, a nurse lovingly helped a woman put on her mask, knowing this would be the last time she saw her husband alive. Later, the nurse took it off. The grieving lost wife looked at me and said, Chaplain, what more should I have done? What now? What now? Is the only question, the most important thing. Bring solace where you can, in the way you can. Bring a word of consolation. Sing a song of hope. Sit in silence and hold in your heart's hands the angry one, the grieving one, the lost one, the sick one, the left behind. A long time ago, my loving uncle visited my family in Colorado. My 7-year-old, shy, hid behind a chair. His smile brought her out. As he was leaving, he said, Nora, God has great things in store for you. She never forgot it. What now? Bless a child, and then another. There is pain in this world, and there is loss. There are tears upon tears. So too is there hope. So too is there a blessing never forgotten. Keep choosing to bless the world. Before COVID-19, the world needed love, your peace, your blessing. During and after, the world needs you, just as you are becoming. Bless it and keep it in your heart. take these readings into our hearts with a special moment of music. Our Universalist ancestors believed that a powerful, radical love awaited them at death. A love so powerful as to be able to cleanse them of even their most vile sins. A love so radical as to be freely available to all. In the days when John Murray ran aground on a sandbar not far from the holy ground on which I stand, this was a wild and heretical theology, this stuff of universal salvation. Over the last 251 years, a theology that holds that all people will ultimately be saved, a theology that rejects the eternal damnation of hell in favor of reconciliation with a greater love. That theology is not so wild anymore. It's barely even heretical in some corners. And yet, since that day that Thomas Potter convinced John Murray to preach universalism right here on these shores, our faith, our Universalist faith, and now our Unitarian Universalist faith, has struggled with the question of what exactly is it that universalism calls us to in this life, before we die, right here, right here, right here. After all, if we're all going to be saved anyway, why bother doing anything in this life? Why even bother being good? Throughout the generations, our universalist ancestors came up with decent responses to these questions. Today, I want to call us to an answer that Clarence Skinner gave us some 80 years ago. Now, a word, I don't always agree with Clarence Skinner, 20th century universalist theologian. In particular, I think he led us a little bit astray in claiming that big U universalism was little u universal, that we as universalists uniquely had a religion for all people and should strive to make it so. In my mind, that's modernist colonizer talk right there, that little u universal religion stuff. It asks us to point to the existence of one truth that is equally valid for all people, and to claim as that truth a theology with its roots in the theology of white Europeans and Americans. I don't believe that such a universal truth exists, much less that white folks would hold it. So I don't do little u universalist religion. But when Skinner asked the question, what does big U universalism demand of us in this life? He got to some things I find worthy of holding up. And this is especially true of how he viewed race and racism from his vantage point as a white male minister in the early and mid 20th century in America. Universalism, he existed, calls on us to fight the perpetuation of racism. In his 1945 work, A Religion for Greatness, he wrote that racism at its core is based in selfishness, superstition, and distortion. If we see life steadily and see it whole, he wrote, we can appreciate all the parts. The part becomes misunderstood only when we see it without relationships as an end in itself. Each race, each culture, each difference in humanity, he wrote, has its own genius and may contribute to a life that is rounded, divine, and complete. I believe that it is our call, once again, to make our faith, this Unitarian Universalist faith, a radical, prophetic challenge to the way things are. It is time to reclaim our place as the wild heretics pushing society forward, pushing theology forward, pushing humanity forward. It's time to rethink the powerful love our ancestors believed awaited them when they died and understand the existence of a powerful love available to us in the present while we live right now. I believe it's time to rethink our theology of universal salvation as a theology of universal liberation, one that can happen here in our midst, right here. I believe it's time for universalists to claim the radical, powerful love that our ancestors once attributed to God as a possibility for humanity. Not as an automatic of humanity. We all know that real evil exists in our world, and that systems created by humans perpetuate evil daily. But as a possibility, it's there underneath all of those layers of hatred and injustice, underneath all of those systems of oppression that humans have used to veil it, to hide it, to bury it. It's there, that love is there. And so that makes our call as universalists making that happen, unveiling that love for all. In 1915, only 10 years into his ministry, and 2 decades before he became a theology professor at Tufts. Clarence Skinner published The Social Implications of Universalism, part of which I read a few moments ago. Here's another part of what he wrote. Universalism was born out of the new humanity, is the gospel of the new heaven and the new earth. It throbs with hope. It was part of the great world movement to reinterpret life in terms of a regenerated, buoyant, self-assertive human nature. Universalism believes in the world and in its potential goodness. It repudiates the gloomy and disastrous outlook of an old anti-social theology. It is not frantically searching for an escape from life. Skinner continues, only those theologies which frankly and persistently align themselves with the world and openly champion its potential goodness can logically enter the great Reformation of the 20th century. And I would say it's now the great Reformation of the 21st century because we didn't do enough last century. But Skinner writes, they alone believe that salvation comes in, by, and through a saved world. This is social salvation. All others believe that salvation comes by escaping from a world which is inherently unsavable. That is the individualistic, antisocial, medieval faith. Goethe once said that the ideal is not an escape from reality, but completion of it. Universalist conception of religion is not that of an escape from reality, but that of the harmonious and spiritual development of all the elements of real life. Clarence Skinner, in 1915, before the flu epidemic, before world wars, and before our modern society and the things that we deal with now. How do we persistently align ourselves with the world? How do we openly champion the potential goodness of the world? Potential goodness that could be right here. What is our call? Our call is nothing less than the collective liberation of all humanity. And not just the spiritual liberation of humanity, though that's good, but the physical and emotional liberation of humanity as well. Because these things, they can't be separated. As long as we are not naming the white supremacy culture in our midst and openly, explicitly, and constantly working to dismantle it, we are failing in our call to champion the true goodness of humanity. As long as listening to the voices of those who have experienced marginalization and naming the ways in which racism is systematized in our society are somehow controversial things to do, controversial things to teach our children about, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. As long as violent, extractive capitalism is allowed to make policy, to block action on climate change, to enact colonialist foreign policies, to abrogate the bodily autonomy of people with uteruses, to let this deadly virus run rampant in communities of color and schools, because we insist that certain adult bodies are needed to show up for work, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. These evils exist because someone is making money off of them, and their money is power in a society that falls short of the radical love that is possible in our world. And as long as we have siblings locked behind bars, as long as their bodies are fuel for the fire of our prison industrial system, as long as we insist that punishment by dehumanization is somehow a necessary response to breaking laws, as long as our nation's constitution allows a loophole in our abolition of slavery for incarcerated people, look it up, it's in the United States Constitution, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. But let us make no mistake. The systems of injustice, which I am talking about today, about which many people have led powerful workshops here at Murray Grove all weekend, workshops that I trust will be available on the Murray Grove website for you to go back and look at. Those systems are using the very beings, the bodies and spirits of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, of poor people, of disabled people, of queer people, of women and transgender people as fuel for the creation of wealth for a very small number of people. As surely as the fires of hell that John Murray rejected burned, human systems of evil burn, and their fuel is people, marginalized people. Our society depends on this fuel, and it is our call to stop that cycle of injustice. It is our call as universalists to reject that fire literally consuming our siblings. It is our call as universalists to amplify the radical, powerful love that we know humanity is capable of. It is our call as universalists to work for the liberation of all humanity, for the spiritual emancipation that Clarence Skinner wrote of in 1915, as well as the physical emancipation so desperately needed in 2021. Light the fuse, Skinner wrote, the fire will reach the balm. It is time, my friends, to set off a love bomb on our world. It is time to act like we are worthy inheritors of the God of John Murray and Hosea Ballou, the God of Olympia Brown and Joseph Jordan, the God of Gloucester Dalton and Amy Scott. Like we are worthy to call ourselves inheritors of a faith that proclaim that all people are saved, in which all people are free, a faith that says that all people are loved. We can be worthy inheritors of that faith by unveiling the radical, powerful love that exists at the core of humanity. It's there, shrouded by layers of hate and evil and injustice, and it is our call to peel those back one by one, again and again, until the love shines forth on everyone. It is time for us to practice radical, powerful, heretical, life-saving love. Right here, right here, right here, right here, right now, over and over and over again. The love is there. Let it shine forth. That is our heretical, powerful, wild, and powerful call. May it be so. Amen.
Hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope comes from the place where the hurt comes. I said, hope
suffering is the part that calls in change, and you don't have to feel ashamed. There is nothing to forgive. The part of you that is crying out is the part that wants to live. Yeah, hope come from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope come from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope come from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope come from the place where the hurt comes. When your world is burning down, well, getting hot is a sane reaction, but one in need of action, because your spirit needs protection. So gather up your sinew and gather up your faction. Hope is not a feeling, hope is an action. Hope come from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope come from the place where the hurt comes. I said hope come. We are not all right. I said hope come. We are not all right. Gonna fall down on my knees.
That's enough to live it.
I'm gonna say, will you help me please?
That's enough to live it.
I'm gonna say I'm not all right.
That's enough to live it.
I'm just trying to make it through this night. Yeah.
That's enough to live it.
I'm gonna fall down on my knees. Yeah. Oh, will we say, help me please? Help me please. We can say, hey, we are not all right. We are not all right. We can help each other get through the night. Cause hope comes from the center of the hurt, in the middle of the dirt. We'll plant a seed and watch it grow into something we don't already know.
We extinguish our chalice, but not the light of love that burns within each of us, the light that we are called to uncover and let shine throughout our world. I hope those of you in the Mount Kisco congregation have something to discuss when you gather at 1 o'clock for conversations while our children are in religious education. I hope those of you who are here from Murray Grove have something to discuss with your loved ones, with each other, and in the weeks and months to come. Our benediction comes from my friend and colleague, Sean Dennison. They write, to invoke love is to ask for a hug from a thunderstorm. Spill tea in the lap of the infinite trickster. Make the biggest, most embarrassing mistake of your life in front of everyone who matters. To invoke love is to never know if it will come softly with the nuzzle of a beloved dog or pounce right on your chest with the strength of a lioness protecting her cub, her pride, her home. To invoke love is to take the risk of inviting chaos to visit the spaces you spent so much time making tidy and watch as the breath of life scatters everything you have only just folded and put away. To invoke love is to allow for the possibility that your words and actions might become so empowered you can no longer believe in apathy or the self-righteous idea that nothing can change. To invoke love is to give up self-deprecation, false humility, pride, to consider yourself worthy to be made whole, willing to encounter love that will never let us let each other go. To invoke love is to guard against assumptions, take care with our words, and practice forgiveness, not as an ethereal ideal, but right here in the messy midst of our imperfect lives. To invoke love is to approach each day and every person with wonder, anticipating love's arrival. Is this the moment? Is this love's grand entrance? Is this person the embodiment of love? Am I the one? To invoke love is to play the fool, the one more concerned with loving than with appearance or reputation, the one ready and willing to be vulnerable, abandoning anything that gets in love's way. To invoke love, to be ready to become love, here, now, in everything we do. Are you ready? Let us become love together, and let us once again sing.
From the light of days remembered turns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living, winds of song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you, Reverend Michael Tino. I'm inspired. And I know everyone who's been witness to this wonderful service today is inspired. And in fact, you've inspired me to write a little poem here, calling it Love Bomb. Hope is an action. There is no status quo here, as we've all made the time to take a deeper dive into ourselves, a deeper dive into what has been, so we can answer the questions of the day with, this is what I want tomorrow, so there are steps for me to take now. I'd like to thank all of you who have attended this weekend, this Sunday as well. I'd like to acknowledge the team that made this weekend possible, because it takes a village. The Murray Grove Board, Reverend Samuel Prince, Rabbi Mark Klein, Pat Radke, David Saylor, Parker Cohen, and of course, the Reverend Carol Haig, who shared her brilliance in the design of the menu of speakers we've been blessed with receiving kernels of their wisdoms as they helped us navigate tomorrow. The Murray Grove staff, yes, those are the hamsters in the cage that you never see, but you feel the action. Linda Smith, Mike Parker, Linda Casellas, Kathy Hermanson, Debbie Wilczek, and Mona Washington, who you've seen as co-MC over the weekend. I'd like to also thank Romal Donovan and the RJ Sound and Technology team. They brought all of this technology together. Arlene Donovan and the Turning Point coaching team. And Dr. Carol Penn, my life partner, wife, and doctor to the world. And of course, all the presenters this weekend, Andrea McChristian, Reverend Kerwin Webb, Robert Seda Schreiber, Sir Lebert, Crystal Charlie Sibley, Dr. Carol Penn, Carol Watchler and Ted Fetter, and of course, Reverend Michael Tino and the UU Faith Action Youth Project. Sorry about that. But all of this made this village that made the weekend possible. So I'd like to thank you all for being, thank the Creator for allowing us to be here today and for being part of the village that has made this weekend whole. I'd like to pass the baton now over to my colleague and friend, I think someone many of you all know, Reverend Carol Haig is going to dedicate part of the grounds in which we walk and share some parting words. So thank you again for coming, sharing, and opening your arms. I'm DM Jones, Executive Director of Murray Grove.
Couldn't be with us in person. I would like to also thank Michael Tino for bringing us together in hope and joy and possibility. The culmination of all of the hard work we've done all weekend to know that it's our job to bring that hope and love forward. So we're going to close the weekend with a virtual dedication of a ship. Michael referred to John Murray coming here and landing on these shores. He traveled on a ship that was called the Hand in Hand. Now, a number of years ago, that happened 251 years ago, but a decade or two ago, there was a new person who came to the Murray Grove board. And as he drove onto the property, he was really excited to come to this historic site of universalism. And he looked around and he looked and he looked and he said, there's nothing here. Basically, there are two cinder block buildings and a broken bell from a church that burned down. So we decided we needed to fix that. An earlier executive director, Louise and I thought about what we could have on the grounds that would be symbolic of the meaning of this place. And we decided that we needed the Hand in Hand. And so that was built last year by some carpenters in Pennsylvania, some Quaker or I don't have the right word, they're Amish carpenters. And it was brought in on a flatbed truck. And Cheryl Giles, who's been with us this morning, and I were here at 7 o'clock in the morning to watch it slide off the truck and land on its place. It is an historic marker and a playground. It's 3 levels high, and it flies the flag of love for all to see. And children and adults can climb on it and have fun with it. And so it is our symbolic representation of the coming of universalism to America. As you can see from some of these pictures, There are ways of getting on. You can climb up a ramp, you can climb upstairs, you can sneak in under the base of it and be in the hold of the ship, which, by the way, did not bring slaves to America, or it would not be here. Um, So it is there, and we would like to dedicate it today. Now, the regular way for dedicating a ship is to take a bottle of champagne and crack it over the bow. But one of the advantages of doing this virtually is we're going to virtually crack this bottle of champagne and not waste the champagne on the ground. So together, let's cheer, dedicate hand in hand. May it sail forward. May it sail forward and bring us on it virtually and in thought and in prayer and in hope to bring more hope and more love and more courage to our land. Bless you, hand in hand. We dedicate you. Okay, we're done.